you're going to need to have your expertise in the buying department outside of showing time. You're going to have to, I'm the best at renovations. I'm the best at putting loans together. I'm the best at getting my clients non-QM opportunities. You're going to have to be a specialist on the buy side.
If you're not getting educated about current real estate market conditions, whether you're a real estate agent, mortgage, attorney, accountant, you just advise people. Maybe the dad of the home buyer should start listening to the podcast here to get up to speed. You're doing yourself and your client base a disservice. This is the Knowledge Brokers podcast. I'm here with Byron Lazine and Lisa Chinatti. You know, Lisa, it's funny because we were at a conference with Byron. I didn't even see him the whole time. I mean, this is I'm glad to get some FaceTime with you here on Friday. And but
not
I mean,
true.
You weren't there.
I had to beg you to walk 10 yards outside and say hello to me.
Because you didn't come in. You didn't come into the conference. That's the point, Byron.
It was him and Bobby sitting by a fire pit by themselves.
I never even saw Bobby. Bobby was there?
Yes.
Yeah,
apparently.
Bobby was there.
Wow.
He was a big part of that conference.
Number one videographer at the Tom Ferry Elite Retreat.
I love the Tom Ferry Elite Retreat. It's a great event every year.
All right, so we got a couple things happening here. I'm going to lead in. Lisa, your home state is making noise again around this Nosalek commission lawsuit, and on they're kind of coming together now. I know you're following this a little more closely. You're part of MLS PIN, right?
We are. Yep, it's our biggest MLS.
Tell us about this. I want the local insight from Lisa Chinatti.
Well, interesting. They're not talking about it much locally, or not that I've heard. MLS PIN isn't putting anything out, but definitely following what's going on in industry. As we discussed, I think, was it last week, the week before, the DOJ they didn't want to let the settlement go through. They had some objections to what was going on, as they really, truly want commissions to become blind. And the really fun thing to shake out this week is that the plaintiffs and the defendants both kind of came together and said that they don't necessarily think that that's the right outcome, which is super fascinating. And I think maybe a good sign for the industry that for once in the past, first time in the past couple of months, we've got both sides kind of aligned on something, saying that not all agents are bad, that not all commissions are bad. And I think really coming out loud and clear saying that I think what everybody wants is the choice. They want options and don't necessarily want it to be forced one way or the other. So I don't know. It's going to be super interesting.
Yeah, if the pendulum swung all the way in the other direction, which is what the DOJ proposes, then to your point, Lisa, sellers don't have the choice to say, no, I want to offer this comp because I think it increases my chances of getting the buyer and my terms. If that's a choice that the seller makes, they wouldn't have that choice according to the DOJ. DOJ does make it clear that what they're not saying, though, is that you wouldn't be able to negotiate this in the purchase and sale. But we know that, in a market like today, a competitive market, putting that in the purchase and sale, isn't going to, be very beneficial to that particular buyer. It can slow down the deal, and so there's a lot of hurdles there.
Well, people have the options to represent themselves in court all the time, but most attorneys wouldn't recommend it, right? I don't think this is much different. I do like that. I mean, this is fascinating to me that you get these two people, these two sides, like, hey, we're going to go after each other, but we don't like what the DOJ is saying. And this is the DOJ is the first ones that came out and said this needs to be totally removed from the process, and you can't do this anymore. The original settlement, which was reopened, talked about a lot of the rules that have already come into play thanks to NAR. And the challenge here with buyers, we're running into this right now on a transaction, and there's a seller that doesn't want to pay a commission. It's an off-market sale. We've got a buyer that's involved. So he says, I want X for the property, whatever X is. And we've also got these people under a buyer agency agreement. So, and our agent's been working with them and doing what he's supposed to do to help them find a house. So then you got to look at options. So I went to one of our lenders that we work with. I wanted to share this on the show here today because I had him go all the way up to the higher ups at his bank. And what's the legality of putting a seller assist on there for a buyer paid commission? Because this isn't going to fly with VA loans, as we know. So here's the bullet points. I got 3 of them for you here, and a lot of it's wait and see, but I think this might be helpful and shed some light on this. FNMA will allow it with normal limits. So 6% seller's assist at a 90% loan to value ratio and 3% at greater than 90% loan to value ratio. FHA will not allow it because it is not a normal and customary cost for buyers. We suspect that will change if these changes in commission rulings end up going through, and VA is a hard no right now. So there's some limitations here, because I don't know what the property taxes are like and the escrows are like in your states. I know California, they reassess at the time of sale. So you get a buyer coming in. I mean, I've seen FHA buyers where they literally have 3.5% down. That's it. That's all they can afford. And they need so much help with the transaction. Now they can't even have the option to do this. So this is where the challenges are going to come up that I don't think the DOJ is really thinking through. And right now, the way the laws are and the agencies are in place, it's really not an option for, a lot of these loan types.
Yeah, that is so far away from being remotely a possibility of changing. There's no indications that that's going to change, Tom, that you can finance buyer commission into the loan. If that were to take place, certainly a benefit to buyer agents. I had a conversation with Sheila already, CEO of Mosaic. You guys just met her. We did a podcast together. It's over on the BAM main channel right now. She said something that everybody who's got a large percentage of their business on the buy side, agents are going to have to do more with less moving forward. And so particularly on the buy side of the transaction, you're going to have to do more hands-on, physical, work on helping them coordinate the actual move, the hard stuff, the vendor relationships, the introductions into the new community. That's where the agent is going to have extreme value. It's not just going to be about pricing the home and getting into a showing schedule. And even the negotiation is going to be important, but that harder work, what I call the physical nature of the business, is going to be required, that do more with less, which means for agents, knowledge brokers out there, you got to be in a mindset of I'm going to have to figure out how I can double my business from a unit perspective. Okay, we've talked a lot about commission compression in the last decade. We've seen that with the portal relationships. And this is another level of commission compression, which means those who do more of the transactions, do more with less, offer more solutions, are going to be the ones that are fine. And there is, the more complicated the problem, the more the consumer is going to want the solution. And so what's a more complicated problem? One of these big moves, a higher price point, all of that stuff is going to matter. And so, unfortunately, with the new construct of the DOJ, it's like, I still believe there's going to be some of these lower end deals that don't get representation, basically. And they're going to be left doing it all on their own, which is the real unfortunate part about how this is going to operate. But I wouldn't suggest a knowledge broker going and working for free on that side of the deal. I mean, unless, if you're running a charity, that's fine, but that's what's going to happen.
Your income is in direct correlation to the size of the problems you solve. How many times have we heard that over the years? And more relevant today and tomorrow than probably ever before. Fascinating to think about, isn't it?
It is. I think listing agents are going to be completely fine. There's really going to be no change for a listing agent. They may even, in some cases, take advantage. There's going to be some that take advantage of it and raise their fees because the consumers will be like, oh, I'm saving money. It's only right. Like they may raise what they're keeping on their side. So listing agents are going to be fine. The changes are on the buy side, and it's where a lot of people need this level of coordination. So I think about the coordination elevating, doing more with less of that contractor relationship, the move, being educated on how somebody should go through a renovation. Even I think you're going to have buyer agents that are duly licensed in a couple of different ways. I'm not suggesting this. Okay. So, make sure that you put an asterisk to what I'm about to say. I'm not suggesting that agents go out and do this or knowledge brokers go out and do this, but you will see some buyer agents that are duly licensed as a lender. You never see that. You'll see some of that in the future. You will see buyer agents licensed as a general contractor if they have expertise in that. You're going to see you have some independent brokerages that play in this space now. You're going to see a rise and an increase on that. Experts on the renovation side. You're going to need to have your expertise in the buying department outside of showing time. You're going to have to, I'm the best at renovations. I'm the best at putting loans together. I'm the best at getting my clients non-QM opportunities. You're going to have to be a specialist on the buy side. Since April, we have uploaded new and sought-after courses, content, and tactical assets for your business into the BAMX platform. Not articles behind a paywall that only pontificate to you what you should think and do, but education that actually shows you how to do what you need in today's market. Every day, we continue to add more content into BAMX and our private Facebook community. Content that works, content that our members have exclusive access to daily. It's why over 1,500 of you and climbing have joined us in BAMX. It's also why tomorrow's price is guaranteed to be higher than today's. That's called inflation. Do not wait any longer. Use code Byron and join the thousands of agents taking their business to the next level today. Code Byron for 10% off. See you in BAMX. We know that in 2024, your business operations will be more important than ever. Once I figured this out, my business was able to scale and take off. See, generating leads is one thing, but getting that deal across the finish line while keeping everyone happy is another story. Enter Mosaic, everything you need once a lead becomes a client. Mosaic picks up where CRMs leave off to streamline the client experience and maximize your productivity. It's the operating platform that gives agents and teams everything they need to stay organized and proactive throughout the entire transaction process and beyond. Transaction management, forms, AI-powered collaborative search, client retention capabilities, and advanced analytics for your business. In other words, you can use Mosaic to create a powerful flywheel for your business. It will help you close every deal, boost your profitability, and generate more repeat and referral business. If you need a better way to run your business, check out the link below and learn how Mosaic can help you today.
I think you can go to
Right.
neighborhood. I think you can go to property type. I don't think it's limited to those that you said, but
No, I
yeah.
agree. Yeah, I
Well,
don't want to make it sound like just what I'm saying is where those categories. There's an array of
Yes.
expertise, and if you can be an expert in 2 or 3 of those categories, it'll be to your benefit.
yeah, I mean, we got into an era coming out of COVID where I don't know was like, or I don't know, I missed it. Like, I mean, people just didn't like they didn't care, and a lot of these and they took for granted what was happening, right? I mean, that I showed the house, I'm entitled to a fee, and they didn't work on their craft. That's why we've seen so many agents kind of. I mean, I can't tell you how many agents have gotten in and out since 2020 that we've seen. So if I mean, I'm excited by what they're saying in the Nosalek lawsuit. I don't know if it's going to matter for the DOJ, which I think is the big question here, because I mean, between them and if you hear, Logan Mohtashami talk about the Fed, they just kind of debate stuff and they don't really get anything done, which is going to be, the more interesting part. You can't just show up. Like, order taking is not acceptable. This is about deal making. We just talked about this at our team. I mean, think about the ability to negotiate a home inspection and the ability to, hey, I've got these 5 contractors that can come in and help you with this. Byron, you talked about assessing homes. It shocks me how many buyers walk in and they're like shocked by a defect that gets revealed in a home inspection when it's obvious to anyone that knows what they're talking about with the house. So there's going to have to be more of a commitment to skill building instead of just showing up and feeling that sense of entitlement. And like you said, working showing time, that's a click of the button, and that's managing a Google Calendar, which most agents can't do anyway. So, I mean, I think you're giving people a lot of credit here.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if it'll be a couple things are interesting from Nosalek. Is the DOJ going to say, "Hey, with what we're proposing, the pendulum's swinging too far"?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's obvious for us to sit here and say this is a significant government overreach. It's unnecessary how far they're going, but are they going to realize it? The other,
Probably not.
Oh, I'm in camp of they might. I am in camp that they might. And the reason that I sit there is that as a country, we worked so hard to get buyer agency in place. And I do have to believe that somewhere someone is going to recognize that we would be stepping back decades in taking away all of the protections that we fought to give to buyers by establishing designated agency and the difference between buyer agency and seller agency.
Okay, so I'd love to see that, Lisa. So DOJ steps back a little bit, maybe says pendulum's going too far. We're going to
Yeah.
hurt buyers. Maybe they come back to center a little bit. That'd be great. Well, I'm calling out our industry a little bit to come back to center as well. You have to give up the notion that nothing is going to change.
Agreed.
You have to give up this NAR narrative that we can just keep saying, well, we haven't, there's no changes necessary. Changes are here. Embrace the change. Be
Mhm.
ready for them. And if everybody can come back to the middle on this thing, we'll have great solutions for buyers and sellers and probably a better industry moving forward. But peddling a narrative, putting people up on debates with old school legacy media companies that make the industry look foolish, we need to get away from that because you're going to piss judges off. When I had the conversation with Notorious ROB, he's like, judges are humans. You sit there and kick and scream like a little 2-year-old on these debate stages. What do you think they're going to want to help the agent if that's their perception that they have?
Right.
So everybody's got to come back to the middle on this thing. In the meantime, knowledge brokers be really diligent on the expertise that you have, categorize it, be able to explain it, be able to lay it out, and you're going to be fine. Sirhan told us in that pod I did with him, like, salespeople will always exist. There's a baseline of 4 million existing home sales that happen. That's a Logan Motor Shopping baseline of 4 million home sales that always happen. And that number, that's like the bottom. That number can go up. There's going to be an abundance of opportunity moving forward. It'll be different. And we'll see who the winners and losers are. We talked about it last week on Knowledge Brokers Pod, where it's like, okay, is one of these big legacy media big legacy brokerages going to fail? Is one of the big portals where 90% of Zillow's income is based off of buyer commissions. They've said, here's one thing I'll throw at you guys. Zillow has said really nothing other than, they said they hate dual agency, which can be confusing. They said that they, are always going to do what's right for the consumer. And they've said that for 20 years. And I agree with them. They're going to continue to do that. But they haven't really said anything about what buyer agreements. And it's because they're not the broker. So maybe that's not their position. But they haven't said anything at all. And yet 80+%, whatever the exact number is right now, of their income is derived from buy side commissions. You know what else I haven't heard enough commentary from is the big brokerages that do have managing brokers across the country approving commissions. I'm not approving that commission. You see this every single day where managing brokers say, no, we have a company cutoff point on commissions. I think those managing brokers are up for a rude awakening in the future. What's your take on those two camps being silent? Managed brokers who don't want to go below a certain commission in their office and they approve commissions, and then the portal and being silent there.
I want to hear Lisa's take on this because she's a broker, but I can tell you there was a large company in our marketplace, and it became almost like a joke where they would not approve anything below a certain commission rate, and it was on the higher end of the norm. And what ended up happening is agents would say, "Hey, I know who I'm interviewing against. I'm just going to cut the commission and beat them." And like they handcuff their people. And the reality is, I'm a big believer that you want to look at the relationship, the lifetime value of the client. There's so much more upside to doing a deal than not. Again, being a deal maker, right? Like that, I think there's such a win there. You get your sign up, all those things. They would not accept it. And this went on for a very long time. I mean, more than a decade, as far as I can recall. And I can't believe they got away with it. I mean, you talk about price fixing. I mean, that's and they had a large market share. They had to because other companies were just undercutting them constantly and they were losing business because of that. So I've seen that happen and blow up in their face. Now their policy is much different. So I could totally see that happening, but it's you're not looking at, okay, so I'm going to take 0 instead of X. Like that doesn't make any sense, right? And we're talking about increasing your transaction volume, Byron. That goes against everything you're talking about there. And then you think about the leverage upside, because every time you sell a house, the question should be, besides obviously representing them, getting them a great result, how can I get 2 more pieces of business out of this? That's how people need to be thinking. And if you're not, and you're just selling your listing, then you're missing out on an opportunity to go out and do more business, which is exactly the challenge that we're running into here, where people aren't thinking about their business and lead generation and pipeline building. So I've already seen it happen and blow up in people's faces at a local level. I can't imagine that's going to fly at a national level. And I don't know what companies are doing this, what
It's
aren't, but they're going to have a problem.
it's across the country in every market. Fill up the comment section. I would bet 3 out of 4 agents listening to this pod right now have a managing broker that aren't the broker themselves, that are in an office, have a managing broker that says, I need to approve all deals under X commission. I mean, you're right, Tom. Lisa's a broker. Let's get her stance on that.
So twofold. Back when I first started, I'm not going to say which big box it was at. I was at a brokerage, and my contract said 2 things. My contract said I wasn't allowed to sign a listing period below a certain percentage. Actually, it said multiple things. So I had to sign that listing at a certain percentage. If I was going into a community where another office of this same brand existed, that percentage actually changed and went up so as not to undercut the agents at that office in the marketplace, which was crazy fascinating. It then also said if the buyer was represented by any member of the same firm, the commission needed to be split 50-50. So buy side, sell side made the same amount of money. Fascinating take.
Bullshit.
And then it also stipulated that in the instance where I did manage to get an exception overridden by the office manager to take something below their normal limit, that my split applied to basically the bottom line that was being taken by the brokerage was the same as the equivalent of whatever that baseline was. So I had to eat it if I signed it less, even after getting permission to sign it at less in the few instances where that shook out. So it was fascinating. I don't know if they still operate that way. I'm going to hope that they don't, because I think it's really wrong in a whole bunch of reasons. From a brokerage perspective, we have removed it all, and we've never really had it. We've always kind of said, we're never going to lose a piece of business over commission. It's our job to prove our value, right? And I do believe that what we do in terms of the listing side is insanely valuable. Kind of slight squirrel. While we were all at Elite, one of my agents and Jason went to a listing appointment, and we've changed our scripting as we present the listing contract. We're still using the NAR listing contract that shakes out for us here. And the first part that it comes to is actually spelling out the full commission. And then we've changed our scripting around the paragraph that talks about what portion of that commission will be co-broked out to the buyer agent. The seller actually agreed to pay us a 6% commission, which is phenomenal. But when we got to talking about what portion was going to be designated to a buyer agent, she refused to allow us to take any of that 6% and designate it to a buyer agent. And we're kind of in a little bit of a quandary. Again, we can't tell her, if we don't offer any of that, your property likely won't get shown. And you're trying to figure out how to navigate it, because we also know it's quite likely that the buyer is going to come in and try to add more money. But it's interesting because I feel like we're in this no man's land with what we can say and what we can't say, and being cognizant of relationships.
So her position is, here's the commission I want to pay you, but I do not want you offering any of it on the MLS too. Now, is
Correct.
she against you deciding to? Okay, she wants a zero in the offer. I'm just trying to understand where the consumer's mindset is on this. I want you to offer zero on the MLS, but now say an agent brings a buyer. Is she saying you can't compensate that broker from your side at all?
Correct. She doesn't want any of the money that she's paying to go towards compensating a buyer agent.
Okay, so
And
she's made that choice, and that's where that's at.
it's interesting though, right? Because you and I, the three of us know she's paying 6%, right? We should be paying a portion of that to the buyer agent.
In your opinion, but not in hers.
Correct. Correct. No doubt. It's a fascinating one. I'm going to tell you, it was the first time as a broker I kind of looked at it come through, and we engaged in the conversations between, a small group of us about what's the right thing to do in this situation, but understanding where we are, and the lack of kind of what's coming out from how these things should shake out and what we can say and what we can't say, and kind of just being like, across the board. It'll be interesting. We've talked about some strategies that we might be able to put in place to still honor the consumer's wishes, but to also still do what's in the best interest of the consumer, given where things stand today. So that being said, kind of going back down the path, I don't feel like brokers should ever be in a position where they have minimums. Again, kind of understanding the dynamics of all of our agents are 1099s. They're individual business owners running their own businesses. I think we toe the line with a bunch of stuff, right? We look at that differentiation between W-2 employees and 1099s, and there's a lot that can come into play even on that side of it, where we know we play in the gray through most of the country with some small carve-outs to designate real estate agents as 1099s. And I do worry the more that we put in place in contracts like that we could be violating some of the tax codes that do give us those protections as 1099s. I don't know. There's so
Yes,
much to it.
good point on that. While I said, some of these dual licensees are going to be on the up, I actually think W-2s will be on the up in the future. Not Redfin style, with poor leadership, but with great operators in their local businesses. I think you'll see more W-2. And I said this like 10 years ago too, but everybody points towards Redfin, towards Redfin's model. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about having great local operators that are just building the infrastructure and giving a small override to those W-2s on a per deal basis.
Without a doubt.
But being able to control the way that they operate at a higher level, because when you do have a bunch of 1099s, to stay legally compliant on 1099 independent contractor agreement, you have less of that flexibility. And that's where managing brokers are really getting themselves in a sticky situation on both sides. To Lisa's point, the independent contractor, also to the point of fixing commission. And I see it every day. I just saw it yesterday. A managing broker trying to dictate this is our company and we can set a standard, using the word standard, of what the company is willing to accept, because they don't want to let go. And this is where the industry's got to come to the middle a little bit. Don't want to let go of yesteryear.
Yeah, but when you let go, you grow. When you let go, you grow, right? And I think that's the thing. A lot of these companies, and you're talking about your like traditional brokerage. I mean, I don't think there's any question here that the team model, the independent model, the teamerage has the most legs moving forward. I am super clear on that. I mean, I know you two are. We talk about it all the time. And these brokerages that like you're talking about yesteryear. I mean, some of these people are like past retirement age. I mean, they're just there and they're managing things and they're doing it a certain way because it's always been done that way. And like this is going to upend all of that. So and Byron, the word standard, right? I mean, that's great for a W-2 employee. That doesn't fly for someone that's 1099. And, even the teams that are run right, they have, hey, if you want this, here's what to do. But they don't say you can or can't be on the team based on that. Like it's like here, it's more of a, if you want to participate in this, it's an opt-in. That's what a 1099 should be. And, brokerages are going to get into a lot of trouble with that. I mean, my dad's a broker. I know all this. I mean, you can't control these people. They're going to do whatever they want. So the more of this is how it's got to go no matter what, it actually supports some of these commission cases in a lot of places. I mean, it's exactly what I think fundamentally these people think they're fighting against.
Is it even like, you have agents that will say to because an agent works on behalf of the broker, a salesperson. I mean, Lisa, if one of your agents said to a consumer, my broker won't let me take less than X on commission, is that even something that, can a broker have that position that we don't take less than X?
I mean, we know that based on our anecdotal stuff in 2 states that are, I know the company Lisa's talking about, and I know the company I'm talking about, and these are not small companies.
I know, but so you can, but here's the I guess the debate. It's like, okay, can you have a standard in your business as a negotiating standpoint that we walk away from all deals at this number? Because you don't have to negotiate yourself down to zero. That's part of a negotiation. You can walk away.
Agreed.
Right?
And I think there's a coaching aspect here of what's worth your time, Byron, which I know we all value our time at a certain level. I mean, and then there's what's legal to say. I look at this as very similar to, hey, it's free to use me as a buyer agent, right? It's not free. Somebody's paying that, right? And I've heard agents say this, and you know what they do? They default to the broker because they're afraid to say no, and they want to make it less about them and try. But I don't even believe that's true because I hear so many people, I got to check with my broker on this. I'm like, no, you don't. I'm like, I know how this works. Like it's, so I think it's a defense mechanism because they're afraid to say no. And I would question if it's legal. I mean, this is a good question.
Almost every managing broker who has said we don't go below this has made an exception somewhere.
Of course they have.
And that's where you get yourself
than buying a car, right? Like when you sit in there with the sales guy, they can negotiate the price and they go, let me go check with my manager. It's kind of the same thing.
Right. And then there's that negotiation, there's a decision. And my point is you have managing brokers across the country saying, no, we will not do this. But there's been an instant in the last 12, 36 months, whatever, where they've made some exception to bring a deal together. Maybe it's a little bit of a higher price point. And that's where you get into a slippery slope where you can get sued. It's like, well, you've made that exception once. And now you're saying, no, we have you got to stay away from no, we have a standard. It's no, on this deal, we're willing to walk away.
No,
and
that's
lose
not going to work for me. No, that's not going to work for me. That's the way to respond.
And I think it should be decided by the individual agent, not by the managing broker. And I think that's probably one of the big differentiators, right? I think individual agents should be free to determine their worth and what they're willing to accept. I get it, especially in the case of some of these huge signing bonuses that are still being paid back, if you will. I can see why, you know what I'm talking about. Some of those brokerages that have to recoup very large amounts of money. And if there's not something at stake there, it might be difficult, if not impossible, to recoup some of that money.
But what's funny about those signing bonuses, I mean, is that, they tie people up in these contracts, which I think is just a bad business move. And then you see these same agents, like they enlist with these like discount referral networks, like an Ideal Agent or like a List with Clever, so they become discount agents.
Yeah.
Imagine, Lisa, you signed, and I know you would never do this, but imagine like you're a managing broker at a big company and you give someone a 5-figure signing bonus. And then you find out this person, the only way they're bringing in business is through discounting commission. I mean, I can understand it to a certain extent from running a business, but the problem here is that it's not clear what's legal to say and what's not legal to say and what we can do and what we can't do. And when the laws and the rules are clear, it's very easy to operate a business. Where I think people are getting jammed up is they're not being trained properly. Number one, I think that has a lot to do with this. And then secondly, we're in this gray area, like you mentioned. I mean, it's like, what can we say? What can't we say? The NAR is enacting changes from a previous DOJ ruling that has now been overturned. I, I don't know how long this can go on for, because someone's going to get into some trouble here.
Yeah, not to totally change topic, but slightly change topic on some of it. One of the things before, whatever, before we,
I'm changing the topic. I'm Lisa Chinatti.
not totally. You're the person I wanted to ask, and I think this is a great forum anyway. One of the other things kind of shaking out with all of these settlements is the now non-requirement to be a member of NAR, right? Which kind of ties into commissions and requirements and that kind of stuff. This morning alone, I've received 2 inbound phone calls because we are not realtor in Massachusetts, right? And other companies, including ones that are parts of these settlements, it's not shaking out yet, right? And I'm curious, and to both of your input, how does that shake out, especially with these NAR-owned MLSs? Like in New Hampshire, we still have to be a member of the Association of Realtors to get access to MLS. What do you guys see happening with that and timelines and that kind of stuff? Because I'm hearing a lot of disgruntled agents with the requirement that they still have to be a part of an association that they don't feel is serving their business.
Oh, that's, I think what happens with it is there's going to be a cliff, but like when we did our prediction show, I think the cliff's 2025 because so many agents are still handcuffed into that association agreement. And, you know, the other part of it, though, Lisa, is so you're an independent. And I also think about it where it's like you're not NAR and you're an independent. A RE/MAX agent, Tom, who is at NAR, RE/MAX is settled and has the maybe Hail Mary chance of some type of protection at NAR, seems to have maybe more shielding versus an independent broker not at NAR. Like, it just seems like if you were to get named, what's the vulnerability aspect for the independents? I still think independents thrive if we can get settlements across the board, but then are you protected if those settlements are from NAR and you're not NAR?
Well, interestingly, I am NAR in Connecticut and New Hampshire, so
but
I'm two-faced again. The NAR face.
Well, does that protect you? But does that protect you in Mass, where the bulk of the?
Yeah, I think that's the question here.
Yeah, I don't know. It's also interesting. It's just I don't know. It's fascinating to me, right? That like these settlements are coming, but not. And I don't know. It's fascinating.
I would also say, it depends on your local MLS too. Like we're part of Bright. I got news for you. Bright is going to be fighting tooth and nail to keep this affiliation in place here. Like I think Bright's a very powerful MLS, right? What's the other one? California CRES. That's the other. That's the largest in the country. Lisa's got MLS PIN that's broker owned. So I think this is going to have a local landscape to it. I mean, Bright is a very powerful MLS, and they're also very difficult to deal with. Like, I mean, they have things on their website. They recently tried to fine us because and it said, oh, normally we'll give you a 48-hour grace period to correct things. They just sent a fine right away. And I'm like, guys, you told me this was the case. Like, what's going on here? So I think your MLS is going to actually dictate this, and your local boards are going to dictate this more than you realize. Lisa may be in a better spot to de-affiliate because, one, it's not required. Two, you got a broker-owned MLS. I think it all depends.
Listen, in Mass, New Hampshire.
I think right now you have a lot of people that don't want to affiliate. They're handcuffed, literally, because of, like Lisa brought up Connecticut. That's why she is affiliated in Connecticut, because you don't get the access to the MLS without it. So it's called a tie-in agreement, which is also illegal. But bleep that out, Poppy. But you'll have a whole bunch of agents that would de-affiliate if they could, and even more if they understood what the new rule book was going to be. If the regulation that is going to happen was clear, crystal clear, then it's easy to make a decision. I know the rules. I know what they're going to be. I know where the DOJ stands. I know where all these class action lawsuits stand. Here's the new rules at play. And if I follow them, I'm going to be good. Well, in that sense, why would they affiliate? To set themselves up with another new made up rule book? So yeah, I think, Lisa, to your point, there'd be a whole bunch of people that would. And let us know in the comments what you would do. I mean, would you want some type of new age association if you knew what the exact rule book was going to be moving forward? There's still the lobbying benefit. And I don't want to overlook that. I've been a critic of NAR for sure, but there is still a lobbying benefit as new, every 2 years, every 4 years, you get fresh blood in DC. But fresh blood doesn't come with fresh ideas. Usually it comes with a lot of buffoonery. And so somebody's got to go in there and explain that to these people like, hey, what you're doing is kind of stupid. And that's the lobbying component.
Be nice if they would do that right now with the DOJ. How about that? So,
election year, I don't think you're going to hear anything about that. What else you got, Tom?
All right. I got a hard stop in 14 minutes. We're seeing inventory grow, Byron. This is something Logan Motoshami's talking about. You were talking about it. I've seen more listings in the past 7 days in a 7-day clip than I saw all of last year. And we're seeing this across the country, and we're heading into March now. This is that historically spring market influx of homes for sale. And I'm a big believer that agents right now need to be sounding off the air horn, the sirens, letting their people know with something as simple as, hey, Byron, it's Tom here following up like I said I would. Not sure if you saw, but inventory's up X% in your market. Would more options impact your real estate plans this year? This works for buyers and sellers. And not enough people are talking about this. Of course, it's not the great inventory numbers we're looking for, but it's more. How are you coaching your agents? What do you see as the inventory message that knowledge brokers should be leading off every call with over the next, let's call it 30 days for the month of March?
Well, I can't coach my agents on an increase in inventory because we don't have it in Connecticut. We're 1,100.
Well, that's why I said local to your market.
Yeah,
so there you go.
Local to your market. Where I'm sitting right now in Naples, Florida, I just had a conversation before the pod with an agent who sells luxury waterfront condos. He's a phenomenal agent. 18 months ago, he'd be carrying one listing, and he's a power, we're talking about $100 million producer.
Mhm.
He'd carry one listing. Well, his listing inventory personally is up 1,700% because he has 17 listings.
Wow.
And they just keeps accumulating. But Naples inventory is like almost a light switch skyrocketing. Okay. We put our house, because I just bought a place, and I put my house on the market while we're transitioning and moving out of it, which is a nightmare because I'm living in a staged environment. Here's the thing. I was going to wait till I was completely moved out, and I'm watching the inventory just go up every single day. I'm like, to my wife, I'm like, we're getting it staged. We're just going to have to live walking on eggshells until we're fully, completely moved out. And we need to be on the market now. So we go on the market, and there's like 8 or 9 other homes in our community that are on the market. 500 or 600 homes in the community. 18 months ago, there'd be 0. My wife gets a Facebook DM from a neighbor. She's like, why are you pricing your home so low? My wife does some research. She's one of the homes on the market, right? Because I listed as the lowest price. I see 9 homes. I say, we're listing here lower than every single other person in the community. So my wife's like, what do I write? I said, you write her back. If you think it's so low, pull the freaking money out of your pocketbook and buy the damn thing. If you think it's such a great deal.
I love that.
Like, don't be an idiot, right?
No friends in Byron's old neighborhood. This is it. He's burning all bridges, moving out.
You think it's such a great deal, go ahead and invest in it, right? I want to make sure that we're the first to sell. And so in a market where there's this rapid increase in inventory, you've got to educate sellers that you've got to price it on today's number. Because if I were to price it where she is, I'm going to be on the market 3 or 4 months. I'm going to do multiple reductions past where I'm at right now. I'm expecting an offer today, by the way, because I priced it correctly. I would have
Congratulations.
reduced below this number. I would have been on the market less, which means I would have been carrying 2 properties for 3 to 4 months. I would have ultimately gotten less money, given myself a bigger headache and all of this stuff. So when the market is changing rapidly with inventory, you can't have hope as your strategy that you're going to be one of the few that gets yesterday's prices. You're going to be in the group that sets the new category of prices, which is not a cliff, it's a tick down. I'm just ticking down from where I would have been, 12 months ago on this price. And everybody's got plenty of equity. Everybody can afford it in my neighborhood. They're all up hundreds of thousands of dollars, unless they literally bought it a couple of weeks ago, right? And so you got to be able to show them that. And it's not that hard. It's not that long of a conversation. If you take a look at these markets for about 10 minutes, you can see the tick down in real time about to happen on pricing.
Yeah, there's actually a playbook for this. I learned it from my first coach when you're going through the market analysis, because every listing appointment. So this is for knowledge brokers out there. I take notes on this. Listing appointment's got 3 components. How you're going to prep the home, how to get the right emotional reaction when people walk through the door. You got staging done. Great job. You took your own advice. Byron, I give you a lot of credit because most agents don't take this advice and they overprice their homes. I know you wouldn't, but congratulations. We've all seen that.
And,
Then the second component.
and I
Go
hate
ahead.
staging, but it works.
Yeah, it does, for sure. Especially when you're living there and you got 2 kids, right? I mean, this is reality.
You have to do
So
it.
getting the right emotional reaction, the right exposure online and offline, whatever your plan is to do that. And it's not putting it on the internet, putting a sign up and waiting for somebody to show up. You've got to educate points of difference there. But third, it's how to position the property to be the next one to sell. See how deliberate that language is? It's not let's price it where the values are. Let's position it to be the next one to
The
sell.
next one to sell.
And then what you want to do is, hey, I'm not just going to show you the sold homes. A lot of agents make this mistake. Knowledge brokers don't. Here's all your active competition right now. Here's what's on the market that hasn't sold. And anything above the average time on market, you want to use the language, this is a market rejected property. It didn't sell in the average. Here's why. And then break it down. And you should be studying these comps. It takes 10, 15 minutes if you know what you're doing. Then show the pendings, because that shows you where the market's going, and look at the trigger point on the asking price. So in your example, let's say the home's priced at 500. You got a bunch of stuff on the market at 550, but there's 2 pendings at 500. And you've got an absorption rate that's going to be higher because there's 9 homes on the market, like you said. Well, hey, Byron, what I'm seeing here is that 500 got these homes sold. And we don't know what they got for it yet. But what we know is these other homes have been sitting on the market for 45, 60, 70, 82 days, whatever the numbers are. This is something we need to acknowledge here. And then you show them what they sold for, because that's the appraisal data set that comes out. If you take that approach, it's 3 steps. You know what you're looking at, you understand it, and you have to use words like bigger, smaller, more updated, better location within the community, end unit versus interior unit. You want to compare pluses and
Views are
minuses.
critical.
Yes, all those things. And maybe not where I live, but in Florida, I'm sure. And so all those things, that's how you present that to them. You have to be thorough in this part, because they're always waiting for that at the end. You want to give them the pitch first. You want to talk about how you're going to prep it, what you do differently, but you've got to be able to close on these things right away.
The level of expertise to be able to help a consumer who doesn't price these things out and who hasn't done updates to their house on what it costs to renovate their current unit, their current home, to the comp that they might be looking at. So there's a comp under contract, same square footage and layout as mine, that is under contract right now for $180,000 more than what I went on the market for. Now, the homes that I feel like I'm competing with are all on the market $30,000 above where I listed. Okay, but some sellers would list there or even above because they see that one outlier comp. Well, that one outlier comp went so over the top on very expensive upgrades. I haven't done really anything. I've done a few things, but really nothing to my unit, So they went over the top on this stuff. And I just looking at the photos, it was very easy for me to price this stuff out because I'm familiar with the pricing of what they bought. Okay. I'm familiar with the cost of the furniture that they're including. They went to really nice, design furniture stores that are local here. And just seeing the name, I'm like, ooh, I know that that's a $10,000 couch, not a $3,000 city furniture couch. Okay. So you can start to do the math very
So
quickly.
bougie.
Yeah. And if you're walking into that listing appointment, it's not enough to just say this home's updated and we're not. That's a $10,000 couch they're including. That chandelier is $4,700. They didn't get that at Home Depot. The buyer of this property is going to understand $4,700 versus $47 chandelier. And these things matter in the difference on what these properties are going to close at. Somebody's going to want to buy my unit. They're going to want to do a few things. Okay. They're going to spend some money. And every time you do some things right now, with the increase in contractor pay, with the increase in the items that you're actually buying, the price tag goes up quickly.
Lisa, you got anything to add here?
Lisa,
No.
inventory in Boston, similar to Connecticut right now, nothing?
We're up a smidge. I actually, before
Yeah.
we started the pod, I pulled the numbers. It's fascinating. I kind of I did a 5-year look, right? 2020, and this is single families. 2020, we had 66.95 for units. And we were an average of 121 days on market. That's for stuff that's sitting, right? 2023, we were at 2820 units with an average days on market of 88. This morning, we're 3026 units with an average days on market of 79. So there's a few kind of interesting things shaking out there. A slight uptick in inventory with a slight downtick in days on market. So we're still multiple offers on most things, not everything, but most things.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
I think that's going to come with the spring here too. I mean, we're all in the Northeast, and it's a little warmer down here, a little milder. That has stuff to do with this. I don't think. I mean, I'm optimistic with inventory growing.
And just to point out, too, March 1st is before for 2020. Those 2020 numbers. March 1st is before the actual impact of COVID. Where I remember after that COVID date hit, when everything shut down, then we had inventory skyrocket. But March 1st was not that mark yet. So that's about 2 weeks out.
2 weeks. Yeah.
Got it.
Yep.
But I do have a hard stop at 11:30.
Yep.
So.
Let's rock.
All right. Covered a lot here. Go get that knowledge. Byron, good seeing you. It was too bad I missed you this week. Lisa, always a pleasure.